Greetings. So this is a audio visual time and date stamped um, recording to give public notice of the statutory declaration regarding rights of indigenous the recognition of indigenous rights and authority. This is my statutory declaration here that I use in lieu of identification. This is what I would use to inform the private corporation and its agents of who I am. I, Maurice Raphael Acosta, and birth certificate number, I have the number there, now known as Tehen Kairi El Bey, and I have my location, domicile location, that would normally be referred to as address. That's my location. Do solemnly declare, in accord with natural law, the 1215 Magna Carta, 1688 English Bill of Rights, the United Nations Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the United Nations Convention on Genocide, and the 1948 United Nations Charter, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent, all recognize valid and binding statutes that I acknowledge the rights, jurisdiction, and authority of indigenous peoples. I further declare that the current fraudulent system instituted in the name of Elizabeth II has absolutely no powers to legislate. Thus, the current continuous pretense and purporting of the right to enact legislative or judicial orders is genocide against indigenous people and a violation of indigenous rights. I refer to U.S. Apology to the Native Americans, C 8113, House of Representatives number 3326, Department of Defense Appropriations Act. This is supported by the Regina versus Jar jury verdict on May 12, 2011 at Southwark Crown Court, number 1 English Grounds in Southwark, London, England. Defendant John Anthony Hall in the United Kingdom proved before an English jury that Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor Mountbattenberg Saxe-Coburg was not the rightful monarch and never was. Queen Elizabeth is not the rightful monarch and never was. This was a two-part argument. First, that Elizabeth knew both then and now that she was crowned on a fake coronation stone instead of the real stone of destiny or the coronation stone, which meant not only was she never properly crowned, but secondly, she was also knowingly and fraudulently conning the public, and that is why she didn't want her coronation televised. I declare that the acknowledgement and recognition of the rights, jurisdiction, and authority of indigenous people on this planet, now called Earth, is lawful, legal in accord with the aforementioned statutes, the United Nations 17 Goals for Sustainable Development, and natural nature. I give notice internationally, domestically, universally via this declaration that I deny corporate fraudulent governance. under reservation of all my rights, unalienable and otherwise, and that I make this solemn declaration, conscientiously knowing it to be true, and that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath. For the jurat, we have the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the United Nations Convention on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights, United Nations Charter, Article 55 and 56, Presidential Proclamation 7500 and the HJR 194, Senate Congress Resolution 26 S.1200, and the HJR 3 HJ3IH. All these are codes you could use to locate these documents that confirm everything that was stated. Affirm to and subscribe before me this date, 14th day of July 2022. I have the credentials there, all the signing, all the stamping from the notary public. A notary public is someone who confirms fact in the office of the president. So that is confirmed as fact by an agent working directly in the president with the president's house to confirm fact. So they are very much aware of who I am as of July 14th, 2022. Upon completion of this document, having it signed on this date, 14th of July 2022, I never utilize driver's permit, vehicle inspection certificate, or insurance certificate. Well, I had some time remaining on the insurance that I had, so I used, that was there until it supposedly expired. But that was just about the end of that year, November 2022. Since that, I don't use those corporate fiduciary certificates because that's all they are, financial operations. You meet them on the road, they're policy enforcers, and you make certain assumptions about what they're talking about because we don't know better. We don't know is corporation financial transactions taking place on the roadways. When they stop you and ask you for your driving documents, you give up documents. These documents confirm what they suspect, that you driving. Driving is illegal because driving is not operating an automobile. Driving, you have to remember, is finance we're doing. They are financial agents. There's finance they're doing on the road. And driving is a financial operation. It means a hostile takeover. That is illegal. You can't just take over somebody's thing because you're ready for it. You know, that is a drive. So because you're doing illegal things, you're driving, you're taking over people's business by hostile takeover. You need permission from the government to break the law, to do this illegal thing. And they have requirements for that. And of course, all these requirements is just contracts that they're making with you. You agreeing as an employee of the state to pay these fees. You volunteering to it. Because from the beginning, you volunteer at the beginning by giving up your ID, your driver's permit, and saying, this is who I am. Because that is what they own. That being in that photograph there with those full capital letter name, that is not a being. That is a subsidiary corporation. That is a business that they own that business. And when you say, yes, that business is me, I represent that business represents me, you're taking on responsibilities there. You're volunteering into it. And they have extreme penalties for those beings that they own. You understand? Them beings are the pay for everything they want right now. You understand? They need them. So you volunteer into it, and they take up that. So, okay, this is you then. Very good. The ball been working, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can say anything. You can say gas too low. You see? You see when needle saying, nah, gas too low. Come, jump out. Because they own you. No, people might get frustrated and think of the situation, but at the end of the day, it's not no right and wrong and good and bad. It's just things happening. And the harder the thing is that you go through, and you have to take, all this energy to catch yourself and figure out yourself and get yourself out of the situation. That is how learning this take place. You understand? So as much as people might become frustrated with the system actually training you to become better. Because I think that is really what causes the downfall of man. We get into a whole mode where things get so easy that we just stop thinking for ourselves. We stop reading, we stop caring to understand what we're reading. As I say, the whole indigenous rights. I have this document here, the statutory declaration that could draw on all these articles from all these documents, international documents, but it's right there in the Constitution. Chapter 1, Part 1, Number 4, right there. That we have all the rights. We just get so accustomed to this situation here now that we feel this is it. This is the only way it go work. But this is the worst possible way it could be. Because we being taxed by a foreign agent. Energy just being siphoned off. Just being extracted. Be a human resource at this stage. Just want to remind people of what happened a few years ago when they said they changed the $100. Remember that. They just say that bill has no value no more, we have a new one. It needs to be said in a more obvious way that it's just games they just on. It's just a racket they're running. And we need to go back to the ways of our ancient ancestors. Forget all the poison. Leave the poison alone. You understand? Fix yourself, fix your temple, fix your being. Focus on that. So let's put in this knowledge out there for all who willing to and want to learn. Notice the agent is notice the principle, and notice the principle is notice the agent.